in the economic power. Israel is being used as a very strong ally to United States. In the Congress, there are 32 Jewish members there, which represent about 18% of the total Congress. Also in America, there is a fund which has carried 244 billion. That fund called CAP fund, and that's produced by the Jewish, and that fund used specifically to elect members of parliament who are sympathize with Israeli cause. Israel today believe that there is the issue of Palestine do not exist, and they should not be there in that area, and that is exactly why they are going, and America supporting them, and the European unfortunately support that. Why the European supporting this? Because the European are also have a problem with America, all creating a problem. America has threatened that will pull out of NATO and supplying the defense of NATO, and that's why Europe are agree, especially those big three countries, which is UK, Germany, France. They are following American policy. They pretended that they are helping the cause and to try to solve the problem of the Gaza, but unfortunately, it does not happen. And I personally believe that the problem, it will remain as it is unless we stand together as an Arab and try to force the issue.
Clear. Mr. Firzli here, you spoke about that it was not the right timing for the anti-apartheid or taking positions like the one that were taken in the 70s during the anti-apartheid and all this issue, and you spoke about the change of the geopolitical alliances and the dynamics of cooperation, and you spoke also about realities on the ground that we have to be aware of when we speak about the situation of Gaza today. Now, if I may ask you here, the images of the starving children, the shocking scenes that we have seen in the social media or in the media at large, do you think that that did not reflect on nations worldwide? And do you think that the social media now would be a true court of the global conscience instead of governments?
It's a very good question, very difficult question. So I'll try to reply as much as I can. Just a caveat or remark, to my esteemed colleague who spoke earlier. I think just like, there's a misconception in Asia and the Middle East, people tend to overestimate the power of the European Union and the European Commission, where in reality, it is rather weak, much weaker than the United States or China. There's another misconception in the Middle East, which is linked to your question, is, in the Middle East, people tend to overestimate the influence of the so-called, Jewish pressure groups in Washington, D.C. As my esteemed, colleague said earlier, why do they overestimate? Because, once again, Netanyahu himself, Prime Minister Netanyahu himself speaks a lot, not only in the name of his government, the Israeli government, which is a modern secular state, but he also very often, Netanyahu and other Israeli right-wing politicians, tend to speak about world Jewry, right? The Jews of the world, etc. That's, of course, an exaggeration. And talking about America, most of the American members of the House of Representatives, most of the American senators...
Briefly, Mr. Firzli, because we're running out of time.
Of course, most of them who happen to be of Jewish origin in Washington are actually hostile to the Likud government. So it's a cruel irony, because most Jewish congressmen in America, they don't like Netanyahu. It doesn't mean they support the Palestinians, but they are rather critical of Netanyahu, and most of them do not support the current policy of Netanyahu in Gaza and the West Bank.
Right.
If I can just say a few words, I'm not very optimistic. Why?